Hey, what's up, guys? I just wanted to make a little video concerning Final Fantasy VII Remake, Rebirth, Reunion, whatever the third game is going to be called, trilogy, and basically what it's really lacking compared to the original. And it was something that was like a key component and what made the original story's iconography and overall tone like very memorable. And I really feel like it's a big reason of why it's such a cultural hit. But this isn't gonna be like necessarily a professional, video essay. It's basically just gonna be me rambling, kind of, more or less. I'll make a real nice video when the third game comes out. But for now, I just want to delve into something that I've seen other people talk about, but like they never really like try to make it the focal point of their video. Or if they did, I never saw it. But basically, what it is that Rebirth and Remake tend to lack edge, or like they tend to tone down the darker, gratuitous aspects of the original story, whether it being like the way the areas look, or character interactions, how they act, or story beats, shit like that. And you can see it, like if you play the original, you can see it in nearly every aspect. And it's kind of crazy because like the remake and rebirth will go out of its way to like really tone down the scene for like no real benefit at all. And I think a prime example of this is the Temple of Ancient scene, or ending scene, after Cloud gives the black materia to Sephiroth right in front of Aerith. In the original, it was sort of like he did it, and he had a mental breakdown in both, but in Remake and Rebirth, it was like way more toned down, because all that would really happen was that he would creepily walk towards Aerith with like a sort of zombie-esque walk and tone to his voice, and then he'd snap out of that at the end, and Sephiroth just swoops in and takes the materia. Meanwhile, in the original, Cloud kind of like forcefully throws Aerith off of him after she tries to stop him, and he has like an out-of-body experience where he views himself give the black materia to Sephiroth, and it sort of like paints a real picture of how like traumatized his mind is, where he would see such a thing. And after he does that, he starts like convulsing, and like he starts talking gibberish, he starts shaking and shit, and Aerith tries to comfort him, and in her moment of trying to comfort him and touching him, it kind of like triggers a fight or flight response, and he freaks out and just starts beating her and saying, what did I do? And it's a real like dark, weird ass scene to think about, like having your protagonist beat the shit out of your heroine in a 1990s game. Like right in the middle of what's supposed to be a triumphant victory. It's like, it's out there, it's not really like something that's expected. It's fucked up. And some people could say that type of thing is unnecessarily gratuitous and it doesn't add anything to the story. I disagree entirely. I feel like having Cloud have such a visceral, fucked up reaction just makes the spoilers warning, Aerith's death, all that more tragic, since that's the last time they interacted. Him beating the shit out of her is his last memory of her alive. And it's like, it's weird, it's weird to like take that for what's a rated teen game and just do away with it because, I don't know, reasons. I guess you don't want to show your main character be morally gray or be fucked up, or you just want to tone down how mentally ill he's supposed to be, because I really don't get it. I guess maybe it might be because of the shippers, how popular shipping of Final Fantasy VII is. They don't want to alienate those people, but to me it just devalues the whole piece of art as a whole. And I'm not like being like, oh, Cloud didn't beat her up, the game sucks. It's more like what that does to the overall tone of the story. It's like, okay, now that Cloud doesn't physically attack her and doesn't have a full mental breakdown, the scene is less impactful, number one, because nothing really crazy happens. Sephiroth just swoops in and takes the material, like I said. And number two, it overall makes the last interaction less tragic. And number three, it makes Cloud's behavior post Aerith's death a little less, I guess, believable, because in the original he was just mentally just gone. And it makes sense, like I said, he did something fucked up, but now in the remake and Rebirth, it's not even confirmed if she really died. So it's like, I mean, obviously the third game is gonna answer it, but it just leaves a lot to be desired in terms of an ending. And not only that, but it makes his behavior in Advent Children even more understandable, because, like I said, him beating the shit out of someone who's supposed to be a dear friend of his, or whatever you want to call her, is fucked up in any aspect imaginable. And it's like, not only that, but like the scene transitions between Aerith's death and, you know, their last interaction, her and Cloud, it's like completely different. In the original, there was a good hour of like Cloud lamenting what he did to her and sort of admitting that he's afraid to go face Sephiroth and save Aerith, just because he has this terrible feeling that if he goes there, he's gonna just wild out again and fuck everything up and just do something even worse. And it's like very human. And then preceding that, there's like a good 30 minutes to an hour of just straight exploration where you explore new areas with melancholic tones, and you finally get to the City of Ancients, and it's like, it's a hyped up area, you know, like the whole game's been kind of building towards it, like a big climax at this point. But you get there and nothing really crazy happens initially. Like, you get there and it's a dead city. There's no enemies to explore, there's no big story beat drops yet. There's nothing. All you can do is just walk around the city and look for Aerith. You can't fight nobody, and you just get the very tension-building theme playing in the background while you explore a new area. And it builds atmosphere, it builds something, you know, that something bad is gonna happen, and it's fucking cool. It's really good, and it's a clear sign of like artistic intention. It's like the tone that they want to set is clearly there, and they do it wonderfully. And like I said, this is an old game with a pretty admittedly goofy art style looking back. You know, most characters look like Lego pieces, but they still really went out of their way to try and build a dark tone to the story. But in fucking Rebirth, Cloud doesn't have that human scene. The dream sequence between him and Aerith and Sephiroth is now way more drawn out, and it doesn't have that kind of brief dreamlike feel to it anymore. Number two, the fucking party's already there by the time Cloud wakes up. There's no like exploration required, or there's no journey to it, there's no nothing. You don't even get the feeling that Aerith is gone from your party and that you want to go get her back. It's like you wake up and then you're already at the climax. She's like 5 minutes away from where Cloud wakes up. And then number three, when you actually get to the City of Ancients after like what, a 2-minute walking cutscene, there's none of that tension building I mentioned is there. There's no slow burn build up, nothing. You get there, Sephiroth appears in the sky and makes a black purple cloud, and then you just fight a bunch of ghost enemies, you know, the time Jennies or whatever, and it's just a big bombastic battle that just says, you know, fuck all that tension building, here's your finale. And I mean, like, I just find it like way less interesting and more corny, because it's like I said, you had something that was kind of like a slow burn building up to a tragic event, and then here it's just like they're rushing you straight through the door. It's like you get there and then the fucking party heads straight to the capital, and then there's a corny cutscene where all the characters like hold back a door of darkness so Cloud could walk through and be the protagonist. And admittedly, the areas do look nice, but it's like there was no, like I said, it was a complete, it feels like a shaft, you know? It's like they completely fucked it up. What was the point of cutting out all that beautiful tension building? Like, what was the point, just so we can rush to the finale and have a big bombastic battle where everybody fights Sephiroth through multiple time fucking entries? I don't know, it's just a way artistically less interesting way to portray that scene. And it makes it even worse because, you know, it's not even confirmed that Aerith dies or not. Most likely what's gonna happen is that she's still dead. It's just that she's alive in like Zack's world or some bullshit like that, and she'll be playable for some sections. I don't know. I mean, it's cool that they want to try and introduce Zack back into the story, and I don't know, fan service, I guess. That's basically what he's there for. But whatever is the like plot outcome of all that setup of, you know, Aerith fake dying or whatever, multiple worlds and shit, I really don't think it's ever gonna be as artistically impactful or memorable as the original death scene. You know, after that big slow burn I mentioned, and Aerith dying and not even being able to say anything, and then you fight the Genova boss battle with her theme playing in the background. It was just it was amazing. Like, if there's a reason that scene is so popular, it's because the build-up was fantastic, the tragic aspect was there, everything was beautiful, man. Shit, I could go on and on about that scene, but I'll save it for when I make something, nice and professional. But yeah, that's just like my personal favorite example of just them kind of butchering something. And it's the most iconic scene too. It's the funny part. Genuinely though, like, it's really strange how they're so like adamant about keeping the gratuitous aspects out of the story of the remakes, but they'll go out of their way to just triple the fucking goofier aspects, like Red 13 walking on his legs, or the Junon parade, the dolphin minigame, sections that I really liked actually in the remake. Like, they really go out of their way to fucking make these scenes extra special. Or even the Honeybee Inn, you finding Rude downstairs in the bar full of bald people, shit like that. The fucking really try hard to make that extravagant, and bombastic and shit. Or the fucking Golden Saucer. Like, the goofier aspects are treated with so much respect and love. It's crazy. I mean, another great example of what I'm talking about is the Barrett and Dine cutscene. The post battle cutscene after Dine loses. In the original, he kind of has like a little moment to himself where he laments the type of life he lived, and he realizes, he can't really be there for his daughter because everything that's happened to him changed him so much as a person that he's just too fucked up and has too much blood on his hands. And in that moment of weakness, he decides to take his own life and tell Barrett, be a good dad in my place. And Barrett watches his friend throw himself off a cliff, and has like a sort of also human lamenting moment where he realizes he's not exactly the most cleanest person ever, because he also has a lot of blood on his hands. And then that cutscene kind of shows him that he wants to change, like he wants to be a better person for Marlene, for himself, and no longer be, a vengeance-driven individual, because he just had a mirror right in front of him showing what he could or might even still end up being if he continues down that path. And post that, he has like a cutscene with the party where he talks to them and, explains that, he's gonna keep going with them, but he's no longer gonna be the same fucking idiot that he was, or he's gonna try his best not to be. And it's a real, like I said, for a fucking old ass game with the goofy art style, it's a real good human moment. It's cool. It's dark. It's not afraid to get edgy, for lack of a better term. And it's real about it. It's human. Meanwhile, in Rebirth, okay, Dine doesn't kill himself, whatever, less gratuitous, but it's just the way they frame his death. It's just so, it feels like it could come from like any sort of movie or any sort of book. It doesn't feel unique in its atmosphere, its tone anymore. Now, instead of, having a sort of mirror death where he laments what he did, Dine loses, and then he kind of like protects Barrett from random Shinra soldiers that arrive last minute to kill both of them. I guess to sort of like have a little redeeming moment right before he dies, kind of thing. And it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of boring. It's like, I don't really think he deserves a redeeming death, number one. And number two, it's not like it's the most redeeming thing on earth. He dies to save Barrett, sure, but then he tells Barrett he has to shoulder on that weight in like an asshole kind of way. It's like, wow, bro, you're gonna just trauma dump on my son? Jokes aside, but for real, it was just a weird way to frame what was such a dark and real death. And it doesn't help that the scene that precedes that is like even weirder, because literally right after Dine dies, you get a boss fight with Palmer, which admittedly is kind of fun, but it's framed in a very humorous, kind of goofy manner, because you're fighting a fat, balding dude riding a robot that looks like a frog. And it's, like I said, it's a cool boss fight, but it literally immediately follows Barrett and Dine's last interaction, and it's just a weird thing to do. It's like, what the fuck? And I mean, like, it's not the worst thing on earth, but it doesn't have that quiet moment anymore. You know, the tone is completely different. It's now big, bombastic, like a fucking Marvel Avengers movie. And then even preceding that boss fight, you get like a little goofy car chase with Elena and Rude, which again I liked in like a gameplay sort of way, and even I thought it was funny, but it was like a tonal whiplash. It's weird. Like, you could have had both of those things a good 20 to 30 minutes after Dyne's death. Like, Barrett could have had his quiet moment. They could have had a burial for him, and then after they rest up, they get chased. Boom. Now you don't have the tonal whiplash, and even though Dyne doesn't kill himself anymore, you can still have at least the emotional moment or something like that. But the game doesn't really try to do that. It's always like rushing you every time there's a chance for it to be quiet and real. And speaking of that whole section, like the fucking Coral Prison, it's no longer even a prison anymore. It's like an attraction. It's just a hangout for bums and punks and gang members, which is, I mean, okay. It's not like the worst change ever, because, you know, admittedly, a fucking amusement park that's like Disneyland having a prison is kind of weird. But it's just it's just to completely get rid of the type of atmosphere that the original prison Coral had. It's just, I don't know. It's just, like I said, it's clear that they want to just get rid of any and sort of all gratuitous aspects from the original, which is a fucking shame. But to really top it off, what really like annoys me about this shit is, you know, the franchise, Final Fantasy as a whole, was never a series to like shy away from kind of fucked up topics or really gratuitous moments, like, at all. It's not even like specific to 7. 7 specifically has like a punk horror tone to it, but in terms of like overall getting serious about the story, like literally every entry has something crazy. Starting from like 4, like in 4 it opens up with the protagonist murdering a bunch of villagers, in cold blood for nothing. 6 has that same kind of opening. Final Fantasy 9 has literal genocide in it. Same for Final Fantasy 10. Final Fantasy 10 has like biblical relations, not biblical, but like religious trauma-esque story to it. Like, the main villains are literally running a false religion. You know, shit like that, you know? What I'm saying is, like, these games don't shy away from getting real. Final Fantasy 6 is a game from like 1960s, and it literally has a scene of on-screen attempted suicide, and it was like rated T. It's like, what the fuck? You know, games nowadays are supposed to be popular for like, oh, we can take the story seriously now, you know? Like, that's what God of War or Last of Us is like gassed up for. It's the fact that, quote unquote, they can have real stories. So why would Square Enix decide to just remake their most popular game of all time and decide to just neuter the story in the serious aspects, when now more than ever they could probably easily get away with putting whatever the fuck they want on screen? But instead of committing to that sort of atmosphere, they decided to just butcher it and sort of tone it down. I mean, like, it's crazy too, because they try to make up for it by having Cloud act like a little mentally weird and be unnecessarily gratuitous to Shinra soldiers or attempt to kill Elena. But it's like, we were already fighting those people in gameplay, you know? It's nothing out there. It's not crazy. If the fact that they try to make that a thing is it just kind of feels half-assed. It's like they want to still have Cloud be mentally ill and fucked up in all aspects, but they don't want to commit to the full bit of him doing something really like unlikable. Like, okay, it's not a big deal to have your protagonist do something fucked up and unlikable. If anything, that just adds to the story and makes him more human. You get what I'm saying? It's like, why? What? Like, for what? For what, man? Genuinely, for what? Maybe someone could explain it to me, or maybe Square Enix could DM me and tell me why, but I don't fucking get it. Because, like, they'll, again, like I said, they're still trying to have him act mentally ill in, like, the corniest ways imaginable. Like, he'll hallucinate Sephiroth and walk around for a good 10 minutes. Or dumb shit like that. In the original, he would have these moments where it would be a flash of white on the screen, and he'd have one of his, like, schizophrenic inner voices talk to him and like correct them on something, and he'd have like a weird conversation with himself, but they were always brief and like kind of subtle. Not, I guess subtle. Yeah, it was subtle, because it's not like you're not even aware who's talking, you know. But in the remake, it's like, oh, you know, Cloud is mentally ill. He's gotta hold his head and walk around and be like, my head, and you know, hallucinate Sephiroth for the billionth time, again and again and again, and it's so fucking monotonous and boring, man. It's such a lame way to portray your character being fucked up in the head, especially when a game from 20 billion years ago got it right the first try, and they got it so right that they decided to remake the entire game due to how fucking good it was. And yeah, man, it's just a shame, you know, for such a great, amazing piece of art to finally get the remake that's been hyped up. You know, the remake could have been like the definitive thing that ties up all the side quest, all the side pieces of media, like They're Just Cerberus, Crisis Core, you know, insert plot threads from those and kind of bring it as like a full, complete Final Fantasy VII product. Like, whoa, this is a definitive game. But now instead, due to all these dumbass changes, like, it's now a weird sorta in the middle remake where it blesses some things, like the goofier aspects, like I said. But then when it comes to what I've been like fucking yapping about for the past good 10 minutes, it just butchers it, completely changes it, or just gets rid of it entirely. And it feels like it loses its identity at this point. It doesn't even feel like a real Final Fantasy VII remake. It feels like a reimagining, which, you know, whatever. Maybe that's what they wanted, but was that really worth it? But at that point, why are you gonna call it a remake? What, to subvert my expectations? Like, that's fucking stupid, man. If you're gonna subvert my expectations, do it in a way that kind of like relates to the overall themes of the story, not some time travel bullshit, not some fucking, oh, did Aerith really die? Or, you know, it's just lame, bro. Because at the end of the day, I have to wait for the third game, and I know for a fact they're not gonna do anything that out there, because they already proved it with the past two games that they're willing to go for like the more safe versions of things rather than just really getting out there. And I just really hope that the third game doesn't follow the trend, because, you know, shit doesn't get any more lighthearted from here on out. We still got Hojo and his whole being Sephiroth's dad and being fucking Vincent's worst arch nemesis and turning into some fucked up monster. We have Cloud's literal, real, I end up in a wheelchair mental breakdown. You know, the shit with Tifa, the world ending or being threatened with ending, and everyone knowing that the meteor is gonna drop on them. The kind of hopeless atmosphere. It's like, I just genuinely hope somehow that they rectify this stupid ass trend in the third game. But, you know, hey, yo, if you watch this much, you probably like Final Fantasy VII almost as much as I do. So I just want to thank you for watching, sticking around, whatever. And if you want to say anything in the comments, you know, agree, disagree, feel free to say anything. I'd love to hear it. And yeah, since you like Final Fantasy VII, I hope you have yourself a damn good one, you heard.